Welcome back to the channel. Today we're exploring the charming and historic city of Halifax, Canada. From the bustling cruise port to the iconic Peggy's Cove, Halifax is a destination brimming with history, culture, and scenic beauty. So let's dive in and see what this town has to offer. Now, Halifax is a popular stop for cruise ships, and the cruise port is a perfect gateway to explore this beautiful city. The port area is incredibly welcoming, with plenty of shops, cafes, and even a farmer's market offering local goods. There are so many fantastic restaurants and things to do in this area.
I'm really curious, how much propane do you think they go through?
And the best part, many of Halifax's top attractions are just a short walk away. The waterfront area is extremely walkable, making it easy to explore on foot. There are many things to do and see around this area, so it is ideal if you don't want to venture too far from the ship. One place I would highly recommend going to see is the Maritime Museum. Now, this is only about a 10-minute walk from the port area. Now, the Maritime Museum, it will transport you back in time to learn about Halifax's rich maritime history. This place is huge, and you could easily spend a couple of hours here, or even more. If you're into maritime history, then you definitely need to come here. Did you know that this museum also houses a fascinating collection of exhibits, including artifacts from the Titanic? That's right, Halifax played a very important role in the Titanic tragedy. After the ship struck an iceberg and sank in April of 1912, Halifax became a central point in the recovery operations. Due to its proximity to the disaster site, rescue ships were dispatched from Halifax to recover victims and debris from the crash area. Here you can see artifacts recovered from the ocean like pieces of the ship, personal belongings of the passengers, and even parts of the ship's woodwork. These objects serve as reminders of the tragedy that took over 1,500 lives. Did you know that Halifax is also the final resting place for many of the victims of the Titanic? That's right, the Fairview Cemetery, along with Mount Olive and the Baron de Hirsch Cemetery. I'm not sure how to say that, but the Baron Cemetery, it holds the graves of 150 victims between the three that are identified and unidentified. Did you know that Halifax is not only known for its Titanic history, but also for one of the most devastating events in Canadian history? They call it the Great Halifax Explosion, and this occurred on the morning of December 6th in 1917, when two ships, the Norwegian vessel SS Imo and the French cargo ship the SS Mont Blanc, collided in the narrow of the harbor.
The shard on the wall there was flung about 4 kilometers from the Narrows all the way down to Spryfield, where they found it embedded in the roof of a house many years later. And this larger chunk here is a section of the Mont Blanc's hull plating. You can see how thick, how solid that steel is, but hull plating is supposed to be flat. And you can see how that's been crumpled like tissue paper from the forces it was exposed to by the time it landed in a man's garden in Dartmouth. Somebody once did the math, and they figured out that between what we have on display and what we have in storage, we have about 0.4% of the Mont Blanc in our collection.
Now, the Mont Blanc was carrying high explosive cargo, and the collision caused a fire on board, which led to a massive explosion. At the time, this was the largest man-made explosion before the atomic bomb. The explosion was so powerful that it created a shockwave that was felt hundreds of miles away and even caused a tsunami in the harbor. This was a very interesting place with so much history to see. I would highly recommend putting this on your list of places to visit while in Halifax. If you want to explore even more of the city, then one of the best ways to do that is by taking a hop-on and hop-off tour. These tours are not only convenient, but also offer great commentary about the city's landmarks and history. Now, Depending on how long you are in port and what you want to see, then this may or may not be a great option for you. Now, if you're planning to go to Peggys Cove, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, now that is about an hour drive one way, and depending on traffic. The hop on and hop off tour typically lasts for about an hour and a half if you don't get off. So keep an eye on the time and make sure that if you're wanting to do both, you allow yourself plenty of time to do so. The hop on hop off tour does stop at many of Halifax's historical areas and shopping areas. So if you're just wanting to explore on your own, this is a great way to get around and visit those areas that you really want to see.
This is a government house. Do you think they put these spiky things here to keep people from sitting down? Sure doesn't keep anybody out.
No Halifax trip is complete without a visit to Peggys Cove. Now, this is located about 45 minutes to an hour from the city, or about an hour from the cruise port. This small fishing village is famous for its stunning lighthouse, which has been guiding ships safely to shore for, well, since 1915. And yes, it is still a working lighthouse to this day. Now, our guide said that there is a lot of controversy on how Peggys Cove got its name.
So I'm not real sure the significance of this. Our tour guide didn't really understand it either. Just there was something about some ladies came out here. One of them's name was Margaret, and it's short for Peggy, and she really liked the place, and so they started calling it Peggys Cove. I don't know the truth behind that.
One theory is that Peggys Cove is named after a young girl named Margaret, affectionately known as Peggy, who was the sole survivor of a shipwreck that was in the area. Now, stories suggest that the village may have been named after the wife of an early settler. There's a lot of folklore around this, so no one really knows for sure where the name came from, but all the locals have their own opinion.
There's a little restaurant here. You can go in. I hear the lobster here is really good. They do have that available inside. The Sue Webster. So they do have a little souvenir shop here. So let's go inside and check that out. Okay, that's funny. That's funny. You got a minute. As you can see, you pretty much have free reign to go wherever you want. Got a Scottish or a bagpipe player over there. There are people that still live here. You can see the houses around. They said, though, that some of the tourists wander off and get in people's yards, and they really frown upon that. So if you're here, and try to stay on the path, we were told.
So if you go, be respectful and don't go venturing through someone's yard. You can, however, go venture onto the rocks that make up much of Peggys Cove. These rocks are formed from molten material that formed about 400 million years ago and then got its shape from glaciers that moved across the area about 20,000 years ago.
So looking at the forecast when we first came here, I thought it was going to be kind of warm, but today is a blistering 61 degrees. That's why everybody's so bundled up. Coming from the U.S. where it's a lot warmer. Well, the areas we're from anyway. Out there, somewhere, there was a plane crash back in 1995 they were talking about. Flight 111, I think it was. I can't remember the airline though. I'll figure it out and put it on the screen here for you guys. I don't know how I really feel about Peggys Cove. There's not a lot here. Yes, it is a neat place, but you definitely can't spend more than an hour or two here.
Now, Halifax was one of our favorite stops on our trip, and this city perfectly blends history culture, and natural beauty. So whether you're strolling around the waterfront, uncovering maritime stories, or just taking in the breathtaking views at Peggy's Cove, there is something here for every traveler. Make sure that if you do go to Halifax that you get off and explore. You're not going to be disappointed. We hope that this video helps you with planning your trip to Halifax. If you're planning a trip, be sure to reach out to your favorite local travel advisor. And if you don't have one, reach out to us. We would be glad to help you. Thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next adventure.